I'm a firefighter, 31 years old, disciplined, debt-free. I track every dollar, keep a tidy house, and eat the same breakfast every morning. I've always believed in structure. You need it when you spend your days running into burning buildings. Rachel was the wild card I never saw coming. 29, laughed like a sunrise, messy as hell, but somehow she fit. We balanced each other. She made me loosen up. I made her feel safe. That's what she said anyway. We met at a mutual friend's engagement party 3 years ago. She spilled wine on my shirt and didn't stop apologizing for 20 minutes. I found it charming. A year later, we moved in together. 18 months after that, I proposed. We were 8 weeks from the wedding when she sat me down one evening with that look on her face. The one I'd only seen twice before. Once when her car got booted, and once when she chipped her front tooth on a margarita glass. I think we should slow down, she said. Not cancel, not postpone. Just slow down. Like we were taking a stroll, we could pause anytime. She insisted it wasn't cold feet. I love you, she said. I need time to reflect. To make sure this is what I really want. Forever is huge, you know? I'm not gonna lie, it gutted me. I thought we were rock solid. We'd already picked the venue, put down deposits, set the guest list. Her parents had chipped in 10 grand. I'd cleared out a corner of my savings to make it all perfect. Now she wanted to hit pause, but I didn't fight her on it. I said okay, told her I respected her honesty, and I meant it. She said she'd stay with Becca, her childhood best friend and old roommate. I nodded, even helped her carry a few boxes out to her car. She kissed me on the cheek like I was her brother and said, I'll still call, okay? I just need a little space. I watched her taillights disappear down the street, then stood in the doorway of our house. No, my house, and felt the emptiness crawl over me like smoke under a door. The first few days, I gave her that space. Didn't text, didn't check in. I buried myself in work, took double shifts, did yard work at night just to keep my hands busy. I told myself it was just a bump. She'd come around. Then Becca posted a photo on Instagram. Rachel, drink in hand, mid-laugh, in a crop top I didn't recognize. The caption, single energy only. I scrolled past it fast. Tried not to read into it. Becca always had that sarcastic tone. But then came another photo, beach trip. Just the two of them, all sun-kissed and wild. Comments full of fire emojis, and you look free, girl energy. No mention of me. Not even a ring on her finger. Then came the worst one, a selfie at a rooftop bar. Rachel leaning into a guy, tall, tan, arms slung a little too casually around her waist. His tag? At Nate_Hayes_. I didn't say a word. I just turned off my phone, got in my truck, and drove to my lawyer's office. We'd signed a prenup. Rachel had insisted it was just a formality. We're partners, she said. It doesn't matter. But I still made sure it was airtight. The house, the accounts, the assets, all protected. Now, I wanted to double-check everything. Cover your bases, my lawyer said, raising an eyebrow. You're not pulling the plug yet. Not yet, I replied. But I'm not going to sit here and get played, either. That night, I poured myself a drink and started organizing screenshots. Every post, every photo, every tag location. Just in case she thought I'd wait around forever. By the end of that week, I had a folder labeled just in case sitting on my desktop, social posts, tag photos, even a screen recording of Rachel laughing in a bikini as Nate hoisted her into a pool. The caption read, test driving summer early. Cute. I didn't comment, didn't like, didn't text. I wasn't giving her the satisfaction of a reaction, but I wasn't sleeping much either. One morning at the station, after a rough overnight shift, I got a text from my buddy Mark, mutual friend of ours, though closer to me than to Rachel. Hey man, don't shoot the messenger, but Becca's been running her mouth at trivia night. Something about Rachel needing to test her options before locking down. You okay? I called him during my lunch break. He sounded hesitant, like he didn't want to be in the middle of it. She said what? That Rachel was feeling boxed in. That she needed to make sure before she got tied down forever. Becca said it's smart. That she wished more women did it. I just nodded, even though he couldn't see me. What about this guy Nate? I asked. There was a pause. That's Becca's cousin. I nearly laughed. Of course. Neat little circle. Rachel's support system, her reflective space, just happened to include a backup plan in human form. She planned this, didn't she? I muttered. Mark didn't respond directly. You need anything, man, you let me know. After that call, things clicked into place. Becca had always been protective of Rachel, almost territorial. She never liked how grounded I was, called me too intense once. I remember the time I brought up budgeting during brunch, and she rolled her eyes so hard I thought she'd pull a muscle. Now, Rachel was living under her roof again, and Becca was whispering poison in her ear. I didn't tell Rachel I knew. I didn't ask questions. I simply met with the bank and froze our shared wedding fund. The prenup allowed it. Funds were still legally mine, since I'd contributed over 90% and her parents' contribution was earmarked with a paper trail. Next, I called the venue. Our date was still locked in, but the final payment deadline was approaching. Hi, I'd like to place a hold on final payment. Can you flag our file? Is everything okay, sir? The coordinator asked. Just a timing issue, I said. We may be adjusting some things. I also began moving certain items out of the house, sentimental things, valuables, my fire helmet from graduation, old family photos. I rented a small storage unit nearby. It felt dramatic, but something told me I needed a head start. I didn't go digging for more proof. I had enough. Instead, I spent my time documenting, organizing, and quietly preparing for every outcome. Rachel texted me once that week. Hey stranger. Hope your week's going okay. Miss you a little. I stared at that message for a full 5 minutes. She didn't ask how I was. Didn't apologize. Just dangled affection like a lure in the water. I didn't reply. Instead, I sent myself a calendar invite for 2 weeks out titled D-Day. It was a reminder. If she didn't come back by then, fully, honestly, without games, I'd pull every lever I had. And I had plenty. 2 weeks passed. No knock at the door. No real apology. Just another string of vague texts that said everything and nothing. Thinking about you today. This is harder than I expected. Hope we can talk soon. I still care. Care. That word. So safe. So clean. Not love. Not sorry. Just care. I ignored every one of them. That Friday, Becca posted a story from their apartment. Rachel and Nate sitting on the floor, sharing takeout, laughing like they were in a rom-com montage. No filter. No shame. Rachel looked happy. Or drunk. Or maybe both. The next day, I took action. I finalized the venue cancellation. The coordinator tried to confirm with Rachel, but I'd already updated the contract. I was the primary signee. I had the legal right to pull the plug. She offered me a partial refund, which I accepted without hesitation. Then I went to the wedding planner, a woman Rachel had handpicked, and let her know our engagement was over. I used that phrase on purpose. Over. Not paused. Not slowed down. Over. She offered her condolences. Don't need I said. Just want to clear the books and make sure my financials are clean. With the prenup holding firm, I redirected the refunded wedding fund into a separate personal account. Her name never touched it. I kept receipts for everything, organized them into a neat little PDF, and included a detailed line showing her parents' $10,000 deposit sitting untouched. It was all above board. That night, I started packing. My lease on the storage unit was paid up for 6 months. I moved out quietly, room by room. She didn't notice, or didn't ask. Either way, I wasn't leaving anything behind when the storm hit. The house was legally mine. Bought it before we even met. She'd moved in with me, not the other way around. That always seemed to bother Becca. You're like a guest in his life, she once said to Rachel at a barbecue. I remember the way Rachel laughed it off, but her face twitched, just for a second. Now, she was about to find out what being a guest really meant. I waited 3 more days, then scheduled a delivery. Not flowers. Not closure. I emailed her a formal notice of venue cancellation, a screenshot of the prenup clause confirming my right to dissolve joint plans, and a breakdown of the wedding fund redistribution. Attached at the bottom, the just-in-case PDF, every social post, transaction, and public appearance she made while on her reflection break. I didn't include commentary. I just signed it. Per your request to slow down, I've applied the brakes. Best of luck. She showed up that evening. No warning, just fury. I heard the screech of tires outside, then the pounding on the door. I opened it and stepped aside. She stormed in like she still owned the place. You froze the account, she hissed. Correct. You canceled the wedding? Also correct. Without even talking to me? I tilted my head. You said you needed time. I gave it to you. You used it to go clubbing and play house with Becca's cousin. That's not fair. I was figuring things out. So did I. Her eyes scanned the living room. She finally noticed the boxes by the door. The empty shelf where our engagement photos used to sit. You're moving out? No, I said calmly. You are. She blinked. I gestured toward the prenup folder on the counter. Your name was never on the deed. You were a guest here. You can stay for the night if you need. But by tomorrow, I'd like my space back. That's when her voice cracked. You're really doing this? I nodded. She opened her mouth to speak, then spotted the envelope on the counter, labeled for your parents. Inside, screenshots of Becca's messages hyping her up, Nate's tagged photos, and a polite note explaining where their $10,000 was and how they could retrieve it. Her mouth closed. She didn't say another word, just walked out, slamming the door behind her. I didn't hear from her the next day, or the one after that. No texts, no calls, just silence. Then, 3 days later, I got an email from her father. We'd like to speak. Privately. I called him that night. He sounded tired, not angry, not confrontational. Just disappointed. He'd received the envelope. Read every word. Clicked through the links. I'd kept it respectful, factual, emotionless, with time-stamped receipts. I didn't editorialize anything. I let the evidence speak. We didn't know, he said. Not about the break, not about this Nate person, and definitely not about Becca's little scheme. I let him talk. He apologized for his daughter. Said he couldn't condone what she'd done. I told him I appreciated the call and that I had no intention of dragging Rachel's name through the mud. I just wanted to protect myself and make sure they got their money back. Before we hung up, he said something I didn't expect. You deserved better, son. That hit harder than I thought it would. The next week was strangely peaceful. I finished moving out, closed the storage unit, and started sleeping like a human again. I cleared her out of my life the way you treat smoke damage. Strip it all down, clean every corner, repaint what's worth saving. The wedding planner refunded her final invoice with a short, passive-aggressive note I didn't respond to. The caterer emailed me a thank you for handling things professionally. The venue already had a new couple interested in our date. It was like we'd never existed. But Rachel? She was unraveling. I didn't see it directly, but people talked. She posted a cryptic Instagram story, some sad indie song over a photo of her old ring box. Becca reshared it with a broken heart emoji. Then Rachel deactivated her account. Mark texted me again. Dude, Becca and Rachel had a screaming match at a wine bar last night. Like full-on meltdown. Something about, you ruined everything and this wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't respond. Then came the video. A stranger posted it on TikTok, shaky phone footage from inside a loud bar. Rachel and Becca, faces red, mascara smudged, mid-argument. You could barely make out the words, but one line came through crystal clear. He was supposed to wait for me, Becca. The caption? Bridezilla loses it after fiancé cancels wedding and exposes her scam skull. Within hours, it hit 10K views. Then 50K. Comments flooded in. She really thought he'd sit there like a chump. Not the cousin. LMAO. Firefighter? Bro dodged a 5-alarm fire. Someone tracked down Becca's LinkedIn. Another found old engagement photos of Rachel and I. They posted side-by-side comparisons with Nate. The internet doesn't sleep, and it definitely doesn't forget. I didn't comment. I didn't like anything. I just watched it burn from a distance. One night, I logged off everything and sat in the quiet of my now empty house. It felt clean, lighter, like a room after you open all the windows. I poured a whiskey, took a slow sip. Then I opened the charity website I'd bookmarked months ago, a burn victims foundation I'd worked with through the firehouse. I donated a portion of the refunded wedding fund in Rachel's name. No fanfare, no announcement, just a small line on a receipt, filed away in my records. Then I opened a hiking app and booked a cabin in Colorado for what would have been our honeymoon week. Solo trip. No distractions. When I closed my laptop, I didn't feel bitter or smug. Just done. She wanted to test the waters. I just let go of the rope. I expected the storm to pass quickly, but the fallout dragged on. It wasn't just online. It was real life, too. A week after the video hit peak virality, I got a call from Becca's number. I let it ring out. A minute later, my voicemail pinged. Becca, voice shaking, accusing me of ruining their lives, then pivoting into a half-hearted apology that didn't sound like one at all. You could have just talked to her, you know? She wasn't going to actually go through with it. She just needed space. This was supposed to make your relationship stronger. You didn't have to make it public. I didn't reply. I just saved the voicemail with the rest of my digital receipts. Maybe it was petty, but I wanted to remember how little accountability people take when their games collapse. Rachel, for her part, went radio silent. Mark said she'd moved out of Becca's place within a few days of their public meltdown. The two of them weren't speaking anymore. Rumor was, Becca's cousin Nate ghosted Rachel as soon as the drama broke online. The backup plan had cut bait. Meanwhile, her parents collected their $10,000 without a word. They sent a formal thank you card, old-fashioned, stiff handwriting, no return address. I left it unopened on my desk for days, finally tossing it in the shredder. Closure, I guess. I kept waiting for anger to hit, or regret, or something hot and burning. But it never came. What I felt was almost mathematical. I'd made the right calls, followed the evidence, protected my future. I thought about what could have happened if I'd begged her to stay, or forgiven everything for the sake of the wedding. The disaster that might have followed. Instead, I watched my life get smaller and cleaner, piece by piece. I canceled our joint streaming accounts, changed passwords, wiped old photos from my phone. Each action felt like sweeping ashes from a floor. Some days, the weight caught up with me, a twinge of loss as I drove past places we used to go, or when I found her mug at the back of a cabinet. But mostly, I felt relief. That's not the word people expect when a wedding collapses, but it's the only one I had. The charity sent me a thank you letter for my donation. I pinned it to my fridge, a small reminder that not everything left behind was wasted. I scheduled my hiking trip, sent out my work schedule, and started planning for a clean break. One night, as I sat on my porch watching a thunderstorm roll in, Mark stopped by with a six-pack. We drank in silence for a while before he finally said, "You know, you did the right thing. Most guys would have crawled back." I shrugged. "I'm not most guys." "Yeah, man," he said. "She lost more than she knows." I looked out at the rain, feeling a quiet satisfaction I couldn't explain. I wasn't broken. I was free. I didn't need to win or get even. Sometimes the best revenge is just leaving the fire behind. A few weeks passed, and the story kept spreading. The bar video never really died down. It just changed forms. Someone stitched it into a Wedding Fails compilation on YouTube. The comments were brutal, but I skimmed past them, refusing to let strangers' opinions mean more than my own sense of closure. Becca disappeared from social media altogether. Rachel's accounts went dark except for the odd tagged photo from distant friends, most of whom had no idea what really happened. Occasionally, Mark would send me screenshots when something new popped up, a meme, a comment thread, a blurry photo of Becca and Rachel at opposite ends of some crowded bar, each pretending the other didn't exist. In the background, my life shifted into something simpler. The house felt bigger, but it was clean. My routines returned. I worked, I cooked, I slept. The quiet was comforting. The only big change was the hiking trip. What was meant to be a honeymoon, weeks of planning, intricate itineraries, fancy hotels, became a solo retreat. I left the morning after what would have been our wedding day, fitting my whole life into a single backpack. The drive out west felt like a reset. The first night, I camped on a ridge overlooking endless pine forest. No cell service, just the distant glow of a town a few valleys away. I watched the sunset and tried to tally the cost of everything I'd lost. But the numbers never quite added up, because what I'd really gained was space. Room to breathe. On the third morning, I woke to a dozen texts. Apparently, someone had filmed Rachel crying in the parking lot of a bar, another meltdown, the caption read, with a crude play on firefighter. She was shouting about liars and betrayal, blaming everyone but herself. The video was already making the rounds, this time with a deeper cruelty. The internet had decided she was the villain, and no one wanted to let her forget it. It didn't make me happy. It just made me tired. That afternoon, I called my parents and told them what had happened. My mom got quiet. My dad just said, "You always did have good instincts, son." They were proud I'd stood up for myself, even if it meant being alone. A few days later, I found myself at the edge of a mountain lake, sunlight bouncing off the water, the world quiet for the first time in months. I left my phone off, let the story roll on without me. I had no interest in being the main character in someone else's spectacle. As I sat there, I realized I didn't need closure from Rachel, or an apology, or even understanding. I'd been tested, and I'd chosen myself. When I got home, I deleted the last of the screenshots. I cleaned out the just-in-case folder and shut the laptop for good. I kept the donation receipt on my fridge. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder, you can come out of the fire changed, but not ruined. Some scars don't need to be hidden. Some stories don't need to be retold. I spent the next weeks adjusting to a new rhythm, a life no longer defined by someone else's needs, or fears, or drama. The phone stopped buzzing with updates about Rachel and Becca. The whispers around the station faded, replaced by jokes about my newfound single guy energy. I went back to cooking for one, grocery shopping for one, living for one. It felt surprisingly good. Some days, I wondered what Rachel was telling herself. If she blamed me, or Becca, or just the timing. But the curiosity faded fast. The truth was, her story didn't matter anymore. Not to me. My world had gotten quieter, smaller, and infinitely more honest. One Saturday, while hiking a trail I'd never tried before, I bumped into an older couple who recognized me from the viral video. The woman hesitated, then said, "You handled that with a lot of dignity." Most people would have lost their minds. I thanked her, nodded, and moved on. I didn't want to be a symbol or a lesson. I just wanted my own life back. I donated the last bit of the refunded wedding money, this time anonymously. The Burn Victims Foundation sent another thank you, and I pinned it up next to the first. My ex-in-laws never contacted me again. I heard through Mark that Rachel had moved back in with her parents, was off social media, and had signed up for a yoga retreat. Becca had gotten a new job in another state. As for Nate, he vanished as quickly as he'd appeared, leaving no digital footprint behind. My house was fully mine again. The closets were empty except for my uniforms, boots, and the battered duffel bag I'd carried since rookie school. I started repainting the walls, tearing out the last remnants of a life I didn't want anymore. There was no dramatic last scene, no confrontation, no apology, no movie ending. Just me, in a sunlit kitchen, brewing coffee for one, humming under my breath. I felt steady for the first time in years. Clean. Like someone who'd finally learned how to set a fire break and let what needed to burn, burn. Rachel wanted to test the waters, so I let her drown in them. I walked away without looking back.